You sit down to pray. You try to focus on God. You finally get a moment of silence in a loud world. And suddenly, a thought screams in your mind. Maybe it's a doubt. Maybe it's a question like, is this even real? Are you just talking to the ceiling? Or maybe it's something darker, something blasphemous, something disgusting. Something so twisted you are afraid to even admit it happened. And immediately the panic sets in. The guilt washes over you like a cold wave. But it's not just guilt. It's terror. You don't just feel dirty. You feel lost. You look at that thought and say, a real Christian wouldn't think that. If I was actually saved, the Holy Spirit wouldn't let that happen. You start to wonder if your entire faith is a lie. You wonder if you are just pretending. You start to spiral. You assume that because the thought is in your head, it must be your sin. You assume that because the volume is loud, the source must be your heart. But I am here to tell you something that might save your sanity tonight. You are confusing the presence of a thought with the permission of a thought. Just because a thought walks into the room of your mind does not mean you invited it. And it certainly doesn't mean you agree with it. We need to make a distinction right now. Some of you are dealing with a spiritual attack. But some of you are dealing with anxiety. You are dealing with OCD. You are dealing with trauma patterns. You are dealing with a brain that is just noisy. And here is the good news. It doesn't matter where the arrow came from. It doesn't matter if a demon shot it, or if your own anxiety fired it. The strategy for defeating it is exactly the same. You need to understand the concept of injection versus inception. Inception is when you birth an idea. It comes from your own desires. Injection is when something else plants one. Think of your mind like a computer. You are browsing a clean website, and suddenly a pop-up ad appears. Something terrible, something graphic. Did you ask for that? No. Did you search for that? No. It was pushed onto your screen by an outside source. Now listen to me. When that pop-up appears, do you feel guilty? Do you think, oh no, I must be a terrible person because this image is on my screen? No! You close the window. You block the ad. You move on. But with our faith, we do the opposite. A dark thought pops up. God hates you. And instead of closing the window, we stare at it. We analyze it. We panic over it. We think the pop-up is proof that the computer is broken. The great reformer, Martin Luther, once said, "You cannot stop a bird from flying over your head, but you can stop it from building a nest in your hair." The thought is the bird. That's the noise. You can't always stop the noise. The sin is letting it build a nest. The sin is agreeing with it. If you shake it off, you haven't sinned. You have warded. This is why the empty house analogy matters. Thieves do not break into empty houses. They don't waste time picking the lock of a shack that has nothing inside. The reason these thoughts hurt so much is not because you are evil. It is because you love God. If you didn't care about God, a blasphemous thought wouldn't bother you. You'd just shrug. The fact that you are terrified, the fact that your stomach turns when you think it, that reaction is the proof of your love. Your repulsion is the evidence of the Holy Spirit standing guard. So, how do we fight back? How do we stop the spiral? The Apostle Paul knew this war perfectly. That is why in Ephesians 6, he calls the helmet of salvation. Have you ever wondered why? Why a helmet? Why not a belt of salvation or a boot of salvation? Because Paul knew that the head is the primary target. He knew that the enemy doesn't just want to annoy you. He wants to disqualify you. The goal of that intrusive thought isn't just to be gross. The goal is to make you take off your helmet. The enemy wants you to look at the thought, panic and say, "Well, I guess I'm not saved then." But Paul says no. Put the helmet on. Protect your assurance. Because if the enemy can get you to doubt your salvation, he can take you out of the fight. In 2 Corinthians 10, Paul gives us the battle plan. We take captive every thought to make it obedient to Christ. Notice the language. Take captive. You don't take your friends captive. You take enemies captive. Paul is acknowledging that there will be intruders in your mind. But here is where most Christians get the strategy wrong. Step 1. Stop negotiating with the intrusive thought. When a dark thought comes, most of us try to argue with it using our feelings. We get into a circular debate. The thought says, "You aren't saved." And you reply, "Yes, I am. I feel like I am. Please go away."